thank you all for joining us for the Build Trust to Enhance Team Effectiveness webinar. My name is Kat Duco, and I'm the Marketing and Business Development Manager at the Myers-Briggs Company. I work alongside a team of key account managers to support our customers across the Asia-Pacific region. On the GoToWebinar panel, you should see a questions box. We'll keep participants on mute for the webinar to avoid any background noise, but we do encourage participation by using the questions box feature. I'll be assisting with questions and comments throughout the webinar, which is going to run for about 30 minutes and will be facilitated by Dr. Jane Austin, Senior Consultant and Principal Psychologist at the Myers-Briggs Company. Jane has extensive experience working with organizations across the Asia-Pacific region in areas of team effectiveness, leadership development, organizational change, and workplace well-being. And today, Jane is going to be sharing insights, some recent research, and different models, including some of our own, for building trust in teams, which has become increasingly important with the strong shift to a virtual workforce. And without further ado, I will turn you over to Jane.
Thank you, Kat. Hello, this is Jane. I'm a registered psychologist with 25 years experience, and I'm absolutely passionate about applying positive psychology principles to helping teams and individuals. So welcome to our webinar. My role at the Myers-Briggs Company entails both consulting and certification training in our suite of assessment tools, which include the MBTI, the FIRO-B, CPI, Strong, and the EQI. Let me also introduce you to our company, the Myers-Briggs Company. We've been around now for over 65 years, and we are a mission-driven organisation. Our mission is to inspire everyone to lead more successful and fulfilling lives. And we deliver on this through our talent identification and development consultancy service, and also by offering certification in trusted psychometric assessments for those practitioners who want to bring this capability in-house. Also, something we're particularly proud of, we're certified as a benefit corporation, or what's often known as a B Corp. Being an official designation, this relays to other people that we look to balance our commercial goals alongside goals we have for our employees, the community, and the environment. We think it's important and would love for you to learn more about this for your own organisation. So trust is the foundation for developing positive relationships. And in this webinar, we'll see why it matters. We'll discuss the benefits that high trust organisations enjoy, and we'll share the evidence which supports that claim. So after I've talked through why trust is so important, the business case for building trust and what drives trust, I'd like to cover the critical role that developing trust has in teams, show how different models of team effectiveness are built on trust, and share some of the signs that trust is maybe lacking in a team to enable you to spot them. So let's talk about trust. Trust, and for that matter, mistrust, have been given a lot of attention in recent times. And in many ways, trust seems to have taken a battering, particularly of late. So if we think about trust in banks, we're all probably aware it's dropped substantially following the 2008 crisis to the point that whereas once the majority would have some level of confidence in banks, currently only 1 in 5 people feel this. Trust in government and politicians has always been somewhat of a challenge, but has dropped to an all-time low, and now it seems politicians are a standard joke to many. Some politicians, such as Donald Trump, have utilised this mistrust to their own advantage, seizing on this mistrust of politicians and government to achieve results that many initially probably viewed as improbable. And trust in the media has dipped, and the whole concept of fake news reflects lack of trust in the media, with fact-checking becoming the new norm. So what about trust in the workplace? Trust in business has dropped over the last decade, And in its 2019 Global CEO Survey, PwC report that 50% or 56% of CEOs think that a lack of trust in business is a threat to their organisational growth. And I think that the results of this lower trust in organisations has led many, such as our own company, to give greater attention to corporate social responsibility and to recognise the importance of balancing purpose and profit through concepts like the B Corp. Trust has become a bottom line metric, and this is because more and more research has been conducted into the benefits of building a trust-based work environment. The type of benefits, such as qualitative differences in the employee experience found in high trust organisations compared to low trust organisations, has been documented. And the Harvard Business Review, for example, notes that those in high trust organisations have 13% fewer sick days, 40% less burnout, and 74% of employees in these organisations report being less stressed. Importantly, higher engagement and satisfaction also lead to improvement in outcomes that have an impact on the bottom line, such as 50% higher productivity. So put simply, people in high trust organisations put more into their work. And these improvements are translated into superior financial results. The Great Place to Work Institute use a model that is built around the idea of establishing high trust organisations. And they've conducted a wide variety of studies examining the impact of becoming a best company. One of the most impressive findings is that according to independent investment firm Russell, comparative cumulative stock market returns among the publicly held Fortune 100 best companies to work for are nearly 3 times greater than the market average. Another independent study of the 100 best companies found that great workplaces achieve superior results over a several-year period across metrics including operating income per employee, operating margins, growth rate, and return on assets. Clearly, workplaces with a high trust culture have an impact on the bottom line. And this is then reflected in other measures such as an average voluntary turnover rate, which has been tracked at just 12% across these high trust companies, compared to an average of 27% over the same period for low trust companies. These companies also earn customer satisfaction ratings, better customer satisfaction ratings because of their more engaged employees. And their better results in relation to employee well-being also helps to achieve benefits in areas such as innovation and agility. For example, in these high trust organizations, 33% more employees report things like people here quickly adapt to changes needed for our organization's success. And they also benefit from strong employer branding. 93% of employees say they're proud to work for these organizations. So let's talk about trust. Here's a definition of trust. The willingness of a party to be vulnerable to the actions of another party based on the expectation that the other will perform a particular action important to the truster, irrespective of the ability to monitor or control the other party. So what is trust exactly? Well, trust involves present decisions, often based on another's past behaviour, that requires anticipating some action that hasn't yet happened. So for those people who do research in the area of trust, trust is often defined as leading to a set of behavioural expectations among people allowing them to manage the uncertainty or the risk associated with their interactions so that they can jointly optimize the gains that will result from cooperative behavior. Most definitions of trust tend to include an aspect of perceived risk of vulnerability, and they also tend to contain an element of psychological safety, something we'll talk about in a moment. At the end of the day, trust is simply a bet, and like all bets, it contains an element of risk. And we human beings, we're risk averse. We're very uncomfortable with it. Risk is really just an amplified form of uncertainty. And we try to protect ourselves, our vulnerability, by safeguarding against the potential losses implied by the risk. Now, there's decades of psychological research studies that have shown us that we human beings, we experience far greater distress over losing something than we do delight perhaps over gaining the same thing. So the question then becomes, why do we take risks? And the answer to that is simply that we have to. The potential benefits from trusting others considerably outweighs the potential losses on average. Now, more so than ever with our current situation in the world, we very much live in a VUCA world, a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. We're all very much reliant on trust and cooperation. You know, the need to gain or increase our resources, whether that be financial, physical, or social, means that we're dependent on others to cooperate. So I'd like to just talk about trust and psychological safety for a moment. So psychological safety, firstly, is a term that's often used in relation to the workplace and describes an individual's perceptions about the consequences of interpersonal risks in their work environment. It consists of taken for granted beliefs about how others will respond when one puts oneself on the line, such as by asking questions, seeking feedback, reporting mistake, or proposing perhaps a new idea. Amy Edmondson is largely credited with having coined the term, and she notes that there's three particular ways that trust is distinct from psychological safety. There are two terms, of course, that are often used quite interchangeably. However, they're considered to be complementary whilst distinct. So the concepts psychological safety and trust, they do have a lot in common. They both describe psychological states involving perceptions of risk or vulnerability, as well as making choices to minimize negative consequences. And both have potential positive consequences for both the team and the organization. So they're complementary but distinct interpersonal beliefs. Amy Edmondson points out three particular ways that they are distinct. She talks about the fact that people often equate trust with giving others the benefit of the doubt, indicating a focus on others' potential actions or trustworthiness. In discussing psychological safety, the question is instead whether others will give you the benefit of the doubt when, for instance, you may have made a mistake or an error. In psychological safety, we consider the very short-term interpersonal consequences we expect from engaging in a specific action. So with psychological safety, we're concerned about the here and now. We're calculating, so to speak, the possible outcome of our actions in relation to a specific action, such as speaking up. The construct of trust, in contrast, pertains to anticipated consequences across a wide temporal range, including the relatively distant future. And lastly, team psychological safety is largely proposed to characterize groups rather than describing individual differences. So it's conceptualized as an emergent property of the collective that describes the level of interpersonal safety experienced by people in a particular group. Members of teams do tend to hold similar perceptions about this. That is, about the way things are done around here, because they're subject to the same influences, for example, by having the same leader, and because many of their beliefs develop out of that shared experience. So I'd just like to dig a little bit deeper for a moment and explore what's going on for people at a brain level around trust. And neuroscience helps us to understand what is going on at that much deeper level, what sits below. So neuroscience views motivation from two perspectives. So from a neuroscience perspective, we talk about moving towards something to gain a reward or satisfy a human need, like social connection, for example. Or alternatively, moving away from or avoiding threats which potentially are thought to cause us harm. And this threat system has evolved to keep us safe. Yet in organisations, it can easily be triggered by modern day threats, like a dissatisfied boss, or low performance rating, or being treated unfairly. Whilst being trusted, or for that matter, trusting another, will move people towards a reward state, the absence of trust or psychological safety will move people towards a threat state. And this, of course, has consequences in terms of people's ability to work effectively. In a reward state, we're able to utilize higher cortical functions that enable us to do things like problem solve or be creative, for example. In a threat state, we're much more limited. We're operating from our limbic system. We're less able to focus and concentrate and unable to tap into those higher cortical functions. The greater productivity of high trust organizations can be explained by neuroscience. Some of you may be familiar with the work of Paul Zak. Paul Zak is the founding director of the Center for Neuroeconomic Studies and a professor of economic psychology and management. And he studies the neuroscience of trust. His early experiments revealed people who felt connected and trusted each other experienced what he called virtuous cycles of higher oxytocin levels. Oxytocin is a chemical often referred to as the love drug that plays an important part in human connection. In 2001, Zak ran an experiment where he gave people an oxytocin boost via a nasal spray, and he found that oxytocin significantly raised their motivation to trust people, as well as their desire to be trusted. And according to Zak, all you have to do to trigger what he calls this moral molecule is to give someone a sign of trust. The person being trusted experiences a surge of oxytocin that makes him or her less likely to hold back, to cheat, or to be untrustworthy. The feeling of being trusted makes a person more trustworthy, which over time makes other people more inclined to trust, and so creates this virtuous cycle. He also says employees invest more of themselves in a high trust organization and experience a similar virtuous cycle of trust. Simply, more trust motivates more energy, productivity, collaboration, and loyalty, fueling stronger business performance. So what drives organizational trust? Some of you will also be familiar with the Edelman Trust Barometer. Edelman have been monitoring trust for over 20 years now. And their 2020 report shows a continuing challenge with trust. But they identify two core drivers of trust at work. Firstly, competence, which is really about whether the organisation is good at what they do. And secondly, ethics. And they find that ethics is 3 times more powerful than competence when it comes to impacting trust. And what about trust in leaders? So if competence and ethics drives trust in organisations, what about in individuals and leaders in particular? So in research conducted on the behavioural elements that drive trust in leaders, 3 components were identified. Firstly, positive relationships. Secondly, good judgment. And thirdly, consistency. And what is interesting about this research or analysis is that in terms of overall trust, positive relationships was the most important factor when it came to trust. More specifically, these positive relationships can be broken down into behavioural areas we can explore when working with teams. So it involves staying in touch on the issues and concerns of others, balancing results with concern for others, generating cooperation between others, resolving conflict with others, and giving honest feedback in helpful ways. So far we've defined trust, we've talked about why it's important, what might drive trust. So now we'll turn our attention to building trust in teams. And the reason we're looking to focus on working on trust at the team level is that work at this level brings benefits to the organisation by indirectly providing development for leaders, and then through the way in which these trust-based teams operate, enhancing the culture of the organisation. So that's not to say that work with leaders and at the organisational level is not likely to add value also. High-performing teams operate on trust. They work together to create ways of working that not only strengthen relationships, but also speed up and improve the quality of all of their shared activities. And when we examine different models of team effectiveness, trust is integral to almost all of these models, either explicitly or implicitly within key aspects. Lencioni's team dysfunctions model explicitly references the role of trust, and I'd like to quickly touch on this particular model. Lencioni sets out the 5 dysfunctions of a team that need to be addressed for a team to become high performing. And the foundation of Lencioni's pyramid is trust, or the absence of trust. And Lencioni recommends that this is really where attention needs to be initially focused. So his definition of trust is the notion that you have confidence that your co-workers have your best interests at heart. And it requires establishing genuine, open relationships where people feel that they're able to be human and share their vulnerabilities, including when they make mistakes. He provides a number of recommendations for building trust, including getting to genuinely understand each other. And so, like us, Lencioni advocates use of the Myers-Briggs type indicator framework as a way of building this understanding. It's only by addressing trust that we can move into healthy debate within the team and then build commitment and accountability in an effort to achieve our team or organisational goals or results. So let's look now at some of the signs that trust may be an issue with the team so that you're able to spot situations where intervention may be helpful. And what we've done here is to categorise some of the indications of lack of trust into 4 broad headings. So firstly, signs of fear of being vulnerable. And the most obvious is that people don't or won't admit to weaknesses and mistakes. People are afraid to have conversations that might open them up to giving or receiving feedback that may not be positive. And if this kind of fear or blame sets in, then they may seek to avoid taking risks. So indirectly, cautiousness in a team may demonstrate a lack of trust and should be explored. The second area is looking for evidence of negative relationships. So do people tend to be seeing the worst in others? And are there signs that they don't appreciate the benefits from working together? Whilst healthy debate is a necessary part of being a high-performing team, unhelpful interpersonal conflict is a sign that people don't truly trust one another. Unfair treatment can be another key area to spot. And by this we mean the tendency to play politics or favourites can mean that people feel there is inconsistency in treatment. This can also be made worse if people either don't offer or accept apologies. Also, lack of praise and appreciation, or if this is not done consistently across different members of the team, can also be an indicator. And the final sign of lack of trust is seen in effective leadership. And this can be seen more specifically in an overly directive approach with limited attempts to involve team members. A blame culture is another indicator where the primary concern when mistakes happen is the allocation of blame, and finally, micromanagement of delegated tasks where managers simply fail to give people the autonomy they want, largely because of the leader's concerns over task completion. I'd like to share with you very briefly a case study that highlights the power of building team trust through greater self-awareness and appreciation of differences in others. We were invited to work with a team from a large oil and petroleum company. And the particular challenge here was to enable members of a multicultural oil refinery team to achieve stronger engagement, affiliation, and improved performance. The challenge involved addressing factors influencing the effectiveness of the team, including the sort of misunderstandings arising from differences of communication styles, decision-making preferences, and cultural background. The team required an engaging learning framework which would enable them to develop an agreed set of goals to improve their team interactions and performance. The solution that we created for the team was that the team would participate in a process which firstly involved individualized assessment and feedback of their MBTI profiles, and then to engage in an experiential workshop designed to address team interactions and agreed approaches for communicating, managing conflict, and utilizing diversity within the team to achieve business results. So two fundamental processes that are key to this project, of course, are building self-awareness and then sharing that information with team members. And it's helpful to look at this through a Johari window, which is a concept I'm sure many of you are very familiar with. So the MBTI was used to help the team members gain greater self-awareness. And the first step, as I say, was to take them through an individual feedback session around their MBTI results. There was a lot of tension and conflict within the team. And certainly we as an organisation have found that rather than just jumping straight into a team workshop, the starting point should always be to help people understand themselves first, so that we're then in a much better position to appreciate the differences in others. So following on from the individual feedbacks where we helped team members to develop this greater self-awareness, trust could then be built through the sharing of these preferences. And not only does that then help the individual become more self-aware, but particularly enables them to understand more clearly the impact of potential blind spots. And it can help in allowing people to acknowledge roles that they're playing at work. So the results were that the team gained insight into their strengths and were able to address the challenges identified through the process. Trust increased between team members, enabling them to make constructive use of personality type differences within the team, to improve the performance and efficiency of the team, and at the end of the day resulted in tangible dollar savings. This particular quote is from Lencioni, and he uses the MBTI at the trust level of his model also, and largely he uses it as a way to quickly build relationships in the team. So for Lencioni and for us, the MBTI is a foundation tool that can quickly move teams to that place of trust and psychological safety. So just to finish up now, just some key takeaways. Trust is fundamental to a high-performing organisation. Ethics and positive relationships are key drivers of trust. And by focusing on developing teams, leaders and the organisation as a whole will benefit. Developing trust is personal. Understanding people's psychological needs and using validated psychometric assessments can help us in that endeavour. So I'll finish up there. Thank you for listening, and I'll hand you back to Kat now.
Thank you, Jane, and thank you all again for joining the webinar today. We'll be taking questions in a few moments, which you can submit through the questions box on your GoToWebinar dashboard. And while we wait for questions to come through, I'll just share some information about our company as well as some free resources that are available on our website. For those of you that are new to the Myers-Briggs company, we work with our clients in a few different ways. We offer consulting services where one of our experienced trainers, like Jane, can design and deliver a customized solution depending on your business requirements and your desired outcomes. Or you can also build that capability internally. We do offer certification programs in our assessments that will give you the knowledge and tools to design and deliver your own solutions. And Jane did mention the MBTI assessment during her presentation. We do have other tools as well to support the entire talent lifecycle, including talent selection tools, emotional intelligence, and leadership 360 tools. And finally, we can offer a flexible collaborative partnership if you want to become accredited in our tools, but also engage our experts for more customized support. For more information, our website's a really great place to start. We do have a range of complementary resources, including case studies that you can download that show how other organizations have incorporated our assessments and services to create positive outcomes. We also have research and white papers in support of our psychometric tools, including a white paper that describes how to successfully pair the MBTI with Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team model to establish a foundation of trust in teams. There's also a range of ebooks and tip sheets available for download, and we do have several upcoming complimentary webinars that you can join as well. The next one is going to be on April 2nd, and it will be about virtual teams and the critical role of effective communications. These are available on our website. You can register for any of them, and if you are unable to join on the day, we will send the recording to each of you. And speaking of recordings, we will send the slides and recording to each of you for this webinar tomorrow. We'll also send a link to a really brief survey online for you to complete, which should just take a couple minutes. So we'd really love for you to take that time and give us some feedback. Now, we'll turn to some questions. So it looks like we did have a few come through. The first one is, are there other tools that might be helpful besides the MBTI for building trust in teams?
Absolutely there are. I think in particular I'd mention the FIRO-B. The FIRO-B looks at our interpersonal needs around influence, control and affection, and we've certainly found in the past that that's been particularly helpful as an additional tool to the MBTI in building trust in teams.
Another question, with more people moving to remote work, would you recommend the same methods for virtual team trust, developing trust in virtual teams?
Absolutely, with regard to using the same methods, helping people gain greater self-awareness and appreciation of differences in others is just fundamental to building trust. We all know that with the current state of affairs in the world, we will need to go to virtual workshops, training, and so that does demand of us an additional set of skills. So I would encourage you to check into our webinar where we'll be looking at some of the skills that might be required to run these sorts of trainings with teams virtually.
I would like to add to you, on our website we do have some additional resources that can give tips on virtual trainings as well. So we do have a web page available which we can direct you to, me and my account management team. We can all connect with you about that. Jane is also available too if anybody has specific questions. I know we're running short on time here. We might not get to everybody's questions right now. In fact, I think we should probably just take one more. But we will be following up with each of you individually if you do have questions that were left unanswered. And Jane is available for free consultations. So if you did want to talk about what's currently happening in your organization and see how we might be able to support you, we can schedule a free consultation with Jane as well. So just a final question that has come through about our certification programs. We do offer certification, and the question was, do we offer them virtually? And I'll go ahead and answer that one, and that is yes, we do. So we are offering our certifications virtually. We have some dates available now and others that we'll be releasing soon. So if there are certain assessments that you're interested in getting certified in, please just reach out to myself or my colleagues in the key account management team, and we can help you, help guide you to the assessments and services that might be the best fit based on your own organizational needs. So thank you all again for joining us for the webinar. We will be following up with the slides and recording, and look forward to connecting with each of you.
Thank you for joining our webinar.